You have been losing power your entire life, and you never even realized it. Every single time someone raised their voice at you, you reacted. Every time someone ignored you, you chased. Every time someone disrespected you, you felt it, deep inside your chest, like a wound that never fully healed. And in that moment of reaction, in that split second when your emotions took control of your body, you gave something away, something invisible, something most people will never understand the value of. You gave away your power. It did not feel like weakness. It never does. It felt normal. It felt human. You were simply responding to the world around you. You were simply feeling what any reasonable person would feel. That is what made it so dangerous. That is what made the erosion so silent, so complete. Because every time you reacted, the world around you learned something about you. It learned where your edges were. It learned what hurt you. It learned how to move you. And once the world learns how to move you, once people around you discover which buttons to press, you no longer control your own life. They do. Think about it. Think about the people in your life who unsettled you. The ones who made you feel small. The ones who could walk into a room and shift your entire emotional state with a single look, a single word, a single silence. You did not understand it then. You may not have understood it until this moment. But they were not more powerful than you because of their money, not because of their status, not because of their intelligence. They were more powerful than you because they could not be moved. While you reacted, they observed. While you explained, they were silent. While you chased, they withdrew. And in that stillness, in that impenetrable emotional distance, they held something you desperately wanted and could not name. They held control. Most people will live their entire lives inside this trap, reacting, defending, explaining, chasing, feeling, bleeding emotional energy into every interaction, every conflict, every moment of tension, and wondering why they always feel exhausted, wondering why respect seems to fade, wondering why the people they try hardest to impress seem least impressed. Tonight, you will understand why. Tonight, you will learn what the most powerful individuals across human history understood and protected above everything else. You will learn why emotional detachment is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the ultimate form of power. And by the time this ends, you will never look at your emotions or anyone else's the same way again. There is something you possess right now that is more valuable than money, more powerful than status, more dangerous, in the right hands, than any weapon ever forged. It is your emotional response, not your intelligence, not your appearance, not your wealth, or your connections, or your reputation. Your emotional response. The thing you give away freely, constantly, without thought, every single day of your life. When someone provokes you and you react, you just spent currency. When someone ignores you and you reach out, you just spent currency. When someone disrespects you and you defend yourself, you just spent currency. Every reaction is a transaction. And most people are bankrupt before noon. Here is the truth that changes everything. Attention and emotional response are the scarcest resources in human psychology. Every therapist knows this. Every strategist knows this. Every person who has ever held real, lasting power over others has known this, whether they could articulate it or not. When you give your emotional response to someone, you give them information. You show them what matters to you. You show them what hurts you. You reveal the architecture of your inner world. And once they have that map, once they know exactly which roads lead to your pain, your anger, your insecurity, your longing, they can navigate you. They can steer you. They can use you. And you will not even realize it is happening. Think of the most respected person you have ever known. Not the loudest, not the most aggressive, the most respected. The one whose opinion silenced a room. The one people were slightly nervous around, not from fear, but from the feeling that they could not quite reach them, could not quite read them, could not quite predict them. They did not earn that respect by showing more emotion. They earned it by showing less, by choosing what to respond to, by choosing what to ignore, by making every person around them feel, sometimes consciously, sometimes not, that their approval was not guaranteed, that their attention was not automatic, that to earn a reaction from them was to earn something rare. And rare things are always more valuable. Most people do the opposite. Most people are fully transparent, fully predictable, fully reactive. They respond to every provocation. They explain every decision. They defend every choice. And in doing so, they communicate one thing above all others. I need your approval. I need you to understand me. I need you to accept me. That need, that visible, audible, undeniable need is the foundation of weakness. Because what you need, others can withhold. And what others can withhold, they can use against you. The moment you stop needing external validation to feel stable, the moment your internal state no longer depends on what others think, say, or do, you become something rare in this world. You become untouchable. More than 500 years ago, a man sat in exile and wrote the most dangerous book in history. His name was Machiavelli. And what he wrote was not a book about cruelty, as his critics claimed for centuries. It was not a manual for monsters, as the frightened and the comfortable preferred to believe. It was a precise, unflinching examination of how power actually works, stripped of illusion, stripped of sentiment, stripped of the comfortable lies that keep ordinary people ordinary. Machiavelli watched princes rise. He watched them fall. He served in the highest levels of Florentine government, studied the behavior of rulers across Europe, and spent decades observing what separated those who held power from those who lost it. And what he discovered was not what most people expected. The rulers who fell, the ones who lost their kingdoms, their influence, their lives were not always the weakest militarily. They were not always the least intelligent. Many of them were brilliant men. Many of them were beloved. Many of them had every apparent advantage. What they lacked was control. Specifically, they lacked control over themselves. They responded to insults when strategic silence would have served them. They showed grief when composure would have commanded more respect. They revealed their fears, their desires, their desperation, and in revealing these things, they handed their enemies a weapon sharper than any sword. Machiavelli wrote that the prince who cannot control himself cannot control others. He observed that the moment a ruler's emotional state became readable, the moment advisors, rivals, and subjects could predict how he would react, his power began to erode. Not through battles lost or alliances broken, but through the quiet, invisible transfer of authority that happens when others stop fearing your unpredictability and start counting on your reactions. He was not writing about cruelty. He was writing about restraint. He was writing about the terrifying, magnetic, inescapable power of the person who cannot be moved. In the courts of Renaissance Italy, emotional detachment was not considered coldness. It was considered mastery. The ruler who could receive devastating news without breaking. The diplomat who could be insulted without reacting. The leader who could be manipulated, who could feel the attempt at manipulation happening in real time and choose, deliberately, not to respond. These individuals were not admired despite their emotional distance. They were admired because of it. Because everyone around them understood, instinctively, what that stillness meant. It meant, you cannot reach me, you cannot move me, you cannot use my feelings against me. And if you cannot use my feelings against me, if the most powerful weapon in human psychology is simply unavailable to you when you deal with me, then you are already at a disadvantage. Before a single word has been spoken. Machiavelli's observations were not limited to politics. They described a fundamental truth of human dynamics that has never changed. The powerful are those who master themselves first. Every other form of power, money, status, influence, relationships, flows downstream from that singular discipline. You cannot command respect from others if your own emotions command you. This is what the last 500 years of human psychology have confirmed, in different languages and different frameworks, again and again. The Stoics understood it. The samurai understood it. Every serious tradition of power and mastery has understood it. Machiavelli simply said it plainest. Control yourself, and you will never lack for power. Power does not come from being the loudest voice in the room. It does not come from having the sharpest argument. It does not come from dominating conversations, from showing how much you know, from making sure everyone around you understands your position. Power comes from being the one person in the room who does not need to prove anything. This is where almost everyone fails, and the failure is not for lack of intelligence or strength. The failure comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what strength actually is. Most people believe that strength is demonstrated through action, through response, through the visible, audible expression of force. They believe that if someone challenges them and they do not respond, they appear weak. They believe that silence signals submission. They believe that walking away means losing. They are wrong. True strength is found in restraint. True power is demonstrated not by what you do, but by what you choose not to do. Consider this. Anyone can react. Reaction requires nothing. Reaction is automatic. It is the most primitive, most instinctive, most animal response available to a human being. When something threatens you, you react. When something provokes you, you react. Your nervous system does it for you. No discipline required, no mastery required. Any frightened animal in the wild can react. But to feel the provocation fully, completely, in every nerve and muscle of your body, and choose not to react, to hold that energy inside you, contained, controlled, transformed, that requires something most people never develop. That requires mastery. And here is the paradox that changes everything. The more visibly unaffected you are, the more powerfully you affect others. When you do not react to someone's provocation, their brain enters a state of uncertainty. When you do not chase someone's withdrawal, they begin to question their own value. When you respond to manipulation with stillness, the manipulator loses their footing. They reach for the lever they have always used and find it is no longer connected to anything. That disconnection is devastating to people who are accustomed to controlling others through emotional manipulation. Power is quiet. Power is selective. Power is controlled. The person who speaks least in a tense room holds the most authority. The person who needs least from others holds the most leverage. The person who can sit in discomfort, in conflict, in rejection, in uncertainty, without breaking, without reaching, without reacting, that person becomes something that the emotionally reactive world cannot fully comprehend. Emotionally detached, strategically present, entirely unreachable. This is the principle. Your emotional state is your most powerful resource, and it must be protected, not shared, not broadcast, not spent on people and situations that have not earned it. You do not give your peace to those who seek to disturb it. You do not give your reaction to those who seek to provoke it. You do not give your attention to those who have not demonstrated they deserve it. You protect it, because it is the source of everything. When you become emotionally detached, truly detached, not as performance, but as discipline, something extraordinary happens inside the minds of people around you. Their brain begins searching for answers. Human beings are hardwired for reciprocity. When someone smiles at us, we feel pulled to smile back. When someone is angry, we feel the physiological pull toward anxiety or defensiveness. When someone is emotionally open with us, social conditioning demands we match that openness. This is not a choice. It is a deep neurological architecture, the mirror neuron system, that evolved over millions of years to enable social bonding and group survival. When you break that reciprocity, when you remain calm where others expect agitation, silent where they expect explanation, still where they expect reaction, you introduce a disturbance in this system that the human brain finds profoundly destabilizing. People do not know what to do with someone they cannot read. They try harder. They escalate their emotional expression to get a response. They become louder, more provocative, more insistent, all in an unconscious attempt to force you back into reciprocity, to make you normal again, to make you predictable. Because unpredictability feels dangerous, and the primitive brain wants to eliminate it. When you continue to hold your ground, when the escalation fails to reach you, something else happens. Their certainty becomes uncertainty. They begin questioning whether they read the situation correctly, whether their provocation landed, whether they matter to you at all. And that question, do I matter to you, is the most psychologically powerful question one human being can hold about another. Here is what unfolds next, and it is deeply counterintuitive. Withdrawal creates obsession. Not in every case, but with remarkable frequency. The person who cannot provoke a reaction from you becomes fixated on earning one. The person who cannot read you becomes fascinated by the attempt. The person who cannot move you becomes almost against their will, preoccupied with the idea of moving you. This is not manipulation. This is simply the psychology of scarcity applied to emotional access. When your approval is automatic, when your emotional response is freely available to anyone who asks, it becomes worthless. When your approval is rare, when your emotional engagement is selective and controlled and clearly not guaranteed, it becomes precious. People will work for what they cannot easily have. And once they are working for your response, your approval, your acknowledgement, the dynamic has shifted permanently. You are no longer the one reaching. You are the one being reached for. This shift from reactor to center of gravity is the essence of social dominance. Not dominance through aggression or manipulation. Dominance through the simple, devastating power of being someone who cannot be easily accessed. The person who needs nothing from you holds everything over you. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. And once you understand it, you see it everywhere. This is where transformation begins. not in philosophy, not in understanding, in behavior. You stop reacting to every provocation as if it carries inherent authority over your nervous system. You stop explaining yourself to people who have not earned the right to your explanations. You stop chasing those who withdraw, defending yourself to those who attack, or performing emotional availability for those who treat it as entertainment. You start operating from stillness. Here is what that looks like in practice. When someone provokes you in conversation, in text, in public, you pause before responding. Not a theatrical pause for effect. A genuine pause of 1, 2, 3 seconds in which you consciously ask, does this situation deserve my reaction? Is this moment worth spending emotional currency on? If the answer is no, you say nothing. You move on. Not coldly, not dramatically, simply deliberately you choose not to engage. And in that choice, you preserve something that the provoker was attempting to take from you. When someone withdraws from you, stops responding, creates distance, plays games with their availability you do not chase, you become equally unavailable, not as punishment, not as strategy in the petty sense, but because your time and attention are finite resources, and you have decided, rationally and calmly, to invest them where they are valued. The moment someone makes their attention conditional, the moment they use their presence as a tool to influence your behavior, you stop making their presence the thing you are working toward. When you are in conflict, when someone is angry, accusatory, or emotionally escalated, you speak less, not more. You allow silence to do work that words cannot. You respond to emotion with information. You respond to aggression with calm, not because you do not feel the provocation, but because you have learned that your calm, in an emotionally charged situation, is the single most powerful statement you can make. It communicates, I am not afraid of your anger. I am not controlled by your disapproval. I am still here. I am still composed. And nothing you are doing right now is changing that. There is no statement of dominance more complete than that. You become selective. With your time, with your words, with your emotional presence. You do not attend every conflict you are invited to. You do not accept every provocation you are handed. You do not allow every person who demands your attention to receive it. Because you now understand that scarcity creates value, and you have decided to make yourself valuable. There are people who will try to break this, not always consciously, not always with malice, but the emotionally reactive world does not welcome the emergence of someone who refuses to play by its rules. When you stop reacting, when you stop chasing, when you stop being the predictable, manageable, emotionally available person, others have always known, resistance will come, and it will come in specific forms. The first is the provocateur. This is the person who tests your composure deliberately. They say things designed to sting. They push boundaries to see what happens. They probe for the edges of your patience because they have learned from other people, from a lifetime of social interaction, that everyone has a breaking point. Their entire strategy depends on finding yours. They will escalate when you do not react. They will become more dramatic, more outrageous, more personal. This is not strength. This is desperation. They are trying to restore a dynamic in which your reaction gives them power. Hold your stillness. Refuse to become what they are trying to create. The second is the guilt architect. This individual operates not through aggression, but through emotional debt. They make you feel responsible for their pain. They frame your emotional detachment as cruelty, your boundaries as abandonment, your silence as rejection. They are masters at reframing your discipline as evidence of your moral failure. They will tell you that a caring person would react, that a good person would explain themselves, that your composure is, itself, the problem. Do not accept this reframing. Caring and being controlled are not the same thing. Compassion and emotional reactivity are not the same thing. You can care deeply for someone and still refuse to allow their emotional state to govern your behavior. The third is the energy drainer. They do not necessarily attack or guilt. They simply consume. Every interaction leaves you depleted. Every conversation circles back to their problems, their needs, their emotional world, and exits without reference to yours. They survive on your attention the way a flame survives on oxygen. When you withdraw your attention, they feel it as a kind of violence. They may accuse you of being cold, of having changed, of abandoning them. What they are actually mourning is the loss of their primary fuel source. Protect your energy from all three. Not with hostility, with distance, with quiet, deliberate, consistent withdrawal of the resource they have been feeding on. Your reaction, your explanation, your emotional availability. They depend on your response. Give them stillness instead. Your emotions will resist this transformation. They are old. They are deeply wired. They have spent a lifetime learning that expression is relief, that reaction is resolution, that chasing the thing you want is the way to get it. Unlearning these patterns, or more precisely, learning to hold them without acting on them, is not a philosophical exercise. It is a physical discipline. When you feel anger rising, that hot, immediate, entirely justified surge of righteous feeling, your body wants to act on it. Your chest tightens, your jaw sets. Your thoughts sharpen toward the thing that caused it. This is biology. This is millions of years of evolution doing exactly what it was designed to do. You do not suppress it. Suppression does not work and does not lead to mastery. It leads to explosions. Instead, you observe it. You learn to create the smallest possible gap between the feeling and the response. A breath, a pause, a second of internal acknowledgement. I feel this, I see this, I know what this is, before you decide what to do with it. And in that gap, however small, choice becomes possible. You are no longer simply the animal your nervous system wants you to be. You are the observer of that animal. And the observer has power that the reactor never will. This is emotional mastery, not the absence of feeling, the presence of distance between feeling and action. It is trained like any other skill. You start small. You notice when you are about to react and choose a 2-second pause. You practice holding discomfort without immediately trying to resolve it. You learn to sit with the anxiety of an unanswered message, the discomfort of an unresolved conflict, the frustration of an unacknowledged effort without reaching for relief. And over time, the gap widens. What once provoked an immediate reaction now provokes a pause. What once derailed your entire emotional state now creates a small disturbance that passes without consequence. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable, then comfortable, then something you move through with complete ease. This is the internal architecture of power, not the performance of calm. The genuine, trained, hard-won reality of being a person who does not break under ordinary pressure. And when you reach that state, when people can see that their provocations do not reach you, that their withdrawals do not move you, that their emotional performances do not create the response they seek, they will feel something in your presence that they cannot fully name. They will feel the weight of someone who has mastered themselves. And that weight is the heaviest, most unmistakable form of authority a human being can carry. You are no longer the person you once were. Something has shifted, not in your circumstances, not in your relationships or your status or your bank account. Inside you, in the architecture of how you move through the world. You see differently now. You watch people reach for your reaction and you understand, with perfect clarity, what they are doing and why. You watch manipulation unfold in real time and you feel not anger, not anxiety, but a kind of calm recognition. There it is. I see it, and I choose not to participate. You think differently. Where once you would have rehearsed arguments and planned responses and replayed interactions looking for what you should have said, you simply observe, you evaluate. You decide, from a position of internal stillness, what serves your interests and what does not, and you act accordingly. Without the weight of emotional debt pulling at every decision, you operate differently. You speak less. You listen more. You choose your moments of engagement with the same care that a master chess player chooses which pieces to move. Not every provocation deserves your response. Not every conflict deserves your presence. Not every person who demands your attention deserves to receive it. You have become someone who cannot be controlled. Not through aggression, not through coldness or cruelty or the performance of indifference, but through the genuine, trained, deeply embodied, understanding that your inner world is yours, that your emotional state belongs to you and no one else, that it is not available as a tool for others to use, a lever for others to pull, a resource for others to consume without permission. And in becoming that person, something else happens, something you may not have anticipated. People feel it. They feel the shift in how you carry yourself, in how you speak, in how you respond or choose not to respond, in the quality of your silence, in the weight of your presence. And something in them changes in response. The provocateurs become uncertain. The manipulators find their tools ineffective. The energy drainers discover that the source has been redirected. And the people who are capable of genuine connection, the ones who respect substance, who value depth, who are drawn to stability rather than drama, those people move closer. Because the emotionally untouchable individual is magnetic in ways that the anxious, reactive, emotionally available individual never is. You are not cold. You are not broken. You are not incapable of feeling. You are free. Free from the exhausting, constant work of managing what others think of you. Free from the trap of needing their approval to feel stable. Free from the cycle of reaction and regret and explanation that consumed your energy and your identity for years before this moment. This is who you were always capable of being. You simply needed to understand what it required. From this moment forward, everything changes. Not tomorrow. Not when circumstances are easier, or people around you are better, or the situation finally becomes what you need it to be. Now, from this moment, in whatever situation you are in, with whatever people surround you, you no longer react impulsively to the world. You act strategically within it. You protect your emotional response the way the most powerful individuals in history protected their most critical resource, because that is exactly what it is. The most critical resource you possess. The source of your influence, the foundation of your authority. The thing that, when protected, makes everything else possible. You protect your attention. It is currency. It is rare. It goes to what has earned it. You protect your silence. It is not emptiness. It is pressure. In the right moments, your silence communicates more than any argument could. You protect your composure. In a world of reactors, the calm individual is incomprehensible, and what others cannot comprehend, they cannot control. You protect your mind. Against the voices that tell you reaction is strength. Against the social conditioning that says emotional availability equals worthiness. Against every person and every pattern that has ever told you your value depends on how much you feel and how visibly you express it. You now understand what Machiavelli understood, what the Stoics understood, what every serious student of power and psychology has always known. The person who masters themselves first will never lack for power over their circumstances. Not power over others, that is not the goal. Power over your own life, over your own choices, over the only thing you have ever actually controlled, and the only thing that has ever actually mattered, yourself. Most people will never arrive here. They will live and react and chase and defend and explain until the end of their days, never understanding that the single greatest source of their powerlessness was the one thing they could have chosen, at any moment, to change. You are not most people. You made it to the end of this. That alone separates you. Now carry it. Not as a performance, not as a mask, as a standard, a permanent, internal, unbreakable standard for how you move through the world from this day forward. If you understand this, if this reached something real inside you, comment below, I am in control. And if you are ready to go deeper into the psychology of power, the philosophy of mastery, the strategies of those who have held influence across centuries, subscribe. Because this is only the beginning of what you need to know. The most powerful version of you is not a dream. It is a discipline, and it starts now.